Good morning to my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. This morning I come to you from this magical location known as Dawes Point, which is situated just below this magnificent construction known as the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and it's only when I stand this close to the Harbour Bridge that I continue to be in awe at how big, how massive this project is, and to think that it was built almost a century ago using the technology, the techniques, the methods of those times that, I just don't know what to say. It's just so magnificent, so massive, so overwhelming, so overpowering, and of course an icon that is recognised, respected and loved by all of us and by those who travel from all over the world to come to our shores. It's a perfect spring morning this morning, a perfect spring Sydney morning just before sunrise, so we'll get to experience one of those magical sunrises, I believe. We've got the Opera House nestled over there in the background behind those trees, and I'll come further down to get a better view of the Harbour Bridge and the surrounds. What I want to do today is go through yet another book summary on Jim's 5am Club to continue the tradition of bringing to my friends and family another lesson of OPE, another dose of other people's experiences in the form of a book summary where we take two or three key points from those books. We talk about them on this walk and talk style of vlog that I put together, and hopefully we can take these morsels, these bits of knowledge, bits of wisdom that have come from various authors. But the great thing about reading and about reading books and book summaries is that when somebody sits down to write a book, what happens is that they go into deep thought and they go to a place which is unique and very, very special. As we said, they go into deep thought and they engage their soul to write about topics which are important to us, and they're also important not only to us but to future generations. So the beauty of reading books, as we mentioned before, is that you get to tap into knowledge, experience, wisdom that transcends time. And if it's important to a person to sit down and think deeply about it and to write about it, then what we're doing is we're experiencing somebody else's transformational moments, and a discerning human being would value that. So what I'm going to do today is go through a book summary like I normally do on Jim's 5am Club. The book today is entitled The Art of Living by an author known as William Hart. And it's a book about Buddhism. I am a Christian, but it doesn't stop me from learning about other ways of life, other ways of living, and to compare and contrast those to my Christian principles. I'm of Greek heritage, so I'm always comparing and contrasting my Christian faith to my ancient Greek faith, which was heavily influenced by philosophy, art, architecture, deep thinking, and it's always refreshing to be able to look at one's modus operandi, the way we function, the way we think, the way we behave, and to question it. But as we say week to week on these vlogs, that we're all going to have a different past. That's guaranteed. Even if you're a identical twin, even if you're joined at the hips, we're all going to experience a different past. We're all going to experience and live a different present, a different here and now. I am here, you are somewhere else, and even if we're in the same place, we are experiencing a different perspective. I am looking there, that other person is looking somewhere else, and we're going to experience a different moment. We're going to have different thoughts. We're going to have a different worldview, which is based on the compounding of our experiences that we've had throughout our lives, the different slithers of reality, the different moments that have shaped our being, and of course we're all going to live a different future, and we don't know where that future is going to lead us. It's all part of God's plan, and the best thing to do is of course to submit to God's will whilst working to better yourself continuously, to submit to God's will, to continue serving God and serving your neighbour, and doing whatever you can to contribute to your skills base, to your resources base, in order to make you bigger, better, stronger, so that you can serve God, glorify God, and serve others. So this book here talks about those principles, the principles which transcend many different religions. And the author here says that whatever necessities you require, work to get them. And if you fail to get something, then simply smile and try again in a different way. Be flexible in your approach. Don't give up because God's denials is not God's will. And if it's meant to be, it will come your way. It will be meant to be. It will materialize. It will happen. But if it doesn't happen, just accept it and don't dwell on it too much. And as the author here says, that try again in a different way, and if you succeed, then enjoy what you get without attachment. Because whatever we get, whoever we become, doesn't really define us, because we are constantly changing. We're not the same person we were when we were first born. We're not the same person that we were yesterday. We are constantly growing, developing, and becoming an expression of God's providence, and we need to work in partnership, continue to work in partnership to generate goodwill and to live the best life we possibly can. So we've got the sun coming up, so what I'll do is I'll start to move so we can get a peek of that sunrise and head towards work. So in summary, this book summary is all about focusing on meditation and the practice of letting go of stress through being mindful and introspective. Because at the end of the day, life is a balance. Life is stressful, and we're forever flip-flopping between having both feet in the past to having both feet in the future, whereas the key message to come from this book is that we need to have most of our presence in the current, in the here and now. Fair enough, you can have one foot in the past, one foot in the future, but most of your presence, most of your being needs to be in the here and now. So let's go for a walk and talk and see where it leads us. So the author here reminds us that our lives, our being is in constant flux and is changing from second to second. And the teachings that this author brings to us are the teachings of Buddha, who lived many, many centuries ago. And Buddha laid the foundations for Buddhism. And interestingly enough, he was able to find things out through experience, through introspection, about how the brain works, how the body works, well before, much well before modern science was able to verify those findings. Because what we know today is the human brain and the human body are ever-changing structures that flow throughout time, and our minds are in flux and undergoing 4 continuous processes at the same time. What a beautiful day it is. So what are those 4 processes that we are constantly going through, constantly cycling through on a daily basis? So the author here talks about those 4 processes, and they're defined as consciousness, perception, sensation, and reaction. So each and every person throughout their lives, throughout various moments throughout their lives, will have moments that focus on consciousness, perception, sensation, and reaction. And consciousness is basically being able to acknowledge and recognize that things are happening around us all the time. Various things are happening around us all the time. So being perceptive is being able to at least acknowledge that things are happening. The second point that the author makes here is that once we acknowledge and accept that things are happening around us all the time, then the next point is perception, where we decide through our interpretation of those things happening around us all the time, whether or not they're positive, they're negative, they serve us, they disserve us. So using perception to decide whether those things are good or bad for us. The third point that the author talks about in terms of the way we cycle through life is that there is a sensation, and we either feel pleasure or pain. We are comforted or discomforted by those things that are happening around us. And the last point that the author makes in terms of the cycle that we work through is that we react to things. We either welcome things, we accept them, or we avoid them in search of more pleasant and more comfortable things. And hereby is one of the struggles that we face with our humanity, in that we try to avoid pain at all costs. But in order to grow and develop, we need to go through pain and suffering and to lean into discomfort so that we can push ourselves to grow and be better than what we were yesterday. So the author then talks about a different concept, introduces a different concept, and they introduce the concept, an Indian concept or a Buddhist concept of sila. So the call to action from this author is to consider introducing and welcoming sila into your life. And sila is living with discernment and living with morality, trying to discern right from wrong and to live a positive life where you contribute to those around you. You are more selfless rather than selfish, and you basically engage in that battle, that struggle between right and wrong, trying to live in peace and harmony, where you feel happiness, where you generate happiness, where you become, I guess, a portal of happiness, not only to yourself, but to all of those around you. And as we said before, where we work in harmony, where we work in partnership with God, trying to execute God's plan as best we can through servitude to Him and serving others around us. Anyway, I'll have to turn my back on that magnificent sunrise and continue walking so I can get to work and not be late today. So one of the key principles of this concept of sila, living with morality, is not to bring harm to others, and of course not to bring harm to yourself. So to express love to others and to express love to yourself, and to live in peace and harmony, as we mentioned, where possible. And from what this author says, from what the Buddhist teachings are all about, is that this is how we are wired as humans to live in peace and harmony. But from time to time we pop out of that mode, we pop out of that state. But what we need to do, according to this author, is to do some practices that enable us to become mindful and to connect better with ourselves and others. We need to calm that agitated mind, which happens from time to time, and as the author mentions here, to try and live in a minimalistic lifestyle, And we hear this all the time. When I read texts from Japanese, when I read texts from ancient Greek philosophers, a lot of this message is pretty universal. So it's not just the Buddhists that talk about living with less and enjoying less and living in peace and harmony. It's a universal message that goes across, I guess, all religions. And while the message is universal, the execution of that message is the big challenge for each and every one of us. So the key is, according to this author, to live with contentment, with fulfillment in our lives, and to be kind, and not only to talk about these things, but to practice what we preach and to do rather than just say. Follow the words with actions and live a principle-centered life. So the last point that comes from this author, from this book, is where we talk about the practice of meditation. And I guess I'm not into meditation per se. Being a Christian, the way I connect with myself and the way I connect with my Creator is through the practice of prayer, which I guess for me has a similar sort of outcome to what meditation may have to others. It enables me to be centered, it enables me to relax my mind and body, it allows me to be fully present, and it allows me to connect with my Creator, and it allows me to, I guess, initiate and engage my mind, body and soul. And to a certain extent you could say that it is part of mind control, mind and body control, because we're letting go of those debilitating elements that create anxiety, fear, uncertainty and doubt in one's life. So I've read before that if you live too much in your past, if you focus too much on yesterday, then chances are that you're going to live a depressed life. And if you focus and live too much into the future, then chances are that you're going to live and suffer from anxiety. Whereas a lot of psychologists, a lot of modern writers talk about the importance of living in the here and now, because through living in the present, the eternal now, you're going to make the most of your life, and you're not going to be a prisoner of depression and anxiety because you're living the now. How beautiful is that? We've got the sunrise over there, but for those who can't see the sunrise, we've got the sun's reflection off that building over there at North Sydney. And it just goes to show that you don't need to be facing east to see a magnificent sunrise, but you can experience it through the energies that are reflected from the people and from the environment, from the buildings that surround us. A powerful message that we can all use and incorporate into our lives. Anyway, so we'll finish up. Once again, this book is all about quietening our internal chatter, and to focus on the here and now, and to become settled. When we're growing up, we always talk about settling down, and I guess it is a powerful point that comes from this author. Anyway, take care everybody. Wishing you all the best on this magnificent Tuesday, this awesome second business day of the work week. We're heading into Christmas. Before you know it, we'll blink and Christmas will be here and gone. Another year to celebrate with our friends and families, and I wish you all well. So thank you very much. I look forward to coming to you again from a different place with a different message of empowerment that we're able to absorb and receive from the various books and book summaries that we have access to. One of the great things about this digital world is that we have access to many, many more books and book summaries now than what we would have had years ago. When I was younger, in order to learn, you basically had to pick up a book and read it from cover to cover, and I'd probably read about 20 pages or 30 pages an hour. So to get through a book, I'd have to probably spend 10 to 15 hours. And just finding an hour of reading time was always very, very challenging, especially when you're growing up in a world with lots of things to do, being young and having friends and my life partner, my parents, my studies. It was always difficult. Whereas these days, we have book summaries that are able to distill and pick out the key messages from the author. There are many times where I would read a whole book only to underline one sentence in that book, but that one sentence was a profound moment, a profound learning. So what I try to do with Jim's 5am Club is to provide a platform to others to enable them to grow, develop and become better versions of themselves, because I know there are people that don't have the time to read. I know there are people who can't read, they're illiterate. Even in today's world, there are people who have problems, not only reading, but in terms of comprehension. So what I try and do is I try and take the OPE, those gems, those morsels, that time-tested lessons, those time-tested lessons that have been able to survive time and transcend time, and bring it to an audience. I've got about 175 followers at the moment, but the beauty of the digital age is that the messages that I'm capturing will be of use today and into the future. Who knows, in 1,000 years time, these tapes, these videos that I'm taking today may be being watched by people who are living in a different time and space and looking at Sydney, how it was in 2022, or better still, how it was in 2020 and 21 during the midst of the COVID crisis, when everything changed for all of us, hopefully temporarily. Anyway, enough of my chatter, but wishing you all the best. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll chat again. This go over here and I'll just show you around where I am here on the piers, and it is peaceful. It is indeed very, very peaceful today. Yasas, and take care. Bye for now.